On the Harbor One hotline, it is the great Mike Milbury. Hey, Mike.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. What happened to the steak sandwich anyway? I didn't get the resolution on that.
I was, first of all, my good name, my character was sullied.
Oh, they killed you.
It was sullied on this program. So when I arrived back from Florida on Monday, I presented my Uber rating, which cannot be questioned. It's a 4.7 out of 5 stars. I then presented the actual order, which did not have extra butter, extra mayonnaise, bacon, none of that. So much of what you heard, Mike, unfortunately, from Chris Curtis, fake news. Luckily, I like him.
Yeah, well, I'm used to that from you people.
I mean, what's your go-to sub order?
It's probably steak and cheese without the extra butter.
Okay. All right. Second. I mean, is it Italian or chicken? Wiggy loves
No, I'm not an Italian guy. I mean, I listen, and I don't mind a good tuna melt once in a while.
Yeah. Tuna sub, you mean? Not a tuna melt? They're different things.
Yeah, I know they are, but
okay.
I'm going to go with tuna melts. But enough of that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the chicken palm is where you need to go.
So listen, we're a week and a half away, essentially, from trade deadline. What do you want to see Don Sweeney do, if anything?
Well, I have to say that they're playing much better. I mean, they've got a pretty good run of weaker teams here, but they've done what they've had to do, and the third and fourth lines have played starting with the Colorado game. I think they played really well and played really hard. They're not going to score a lot of goals, but they showed some passion and emotion and a good checking game, which is just hard work. And so, they've breathed a little life into their schedule. Have I changed my mind and think they're real contenders? No, but at least they're looking like they can, they can play with some of these other teams. They still have to go against some real iron. So where does that leave you? I mean, you don't really want to leave your team to hang out to dry when they're playing as well as this. Swayman is playing like a number one goaltender. He'll be tested severely when it comes to April. But, I guess I'd look around and tinker a little bit. I'm not going to make a major deal. DeBrusk is still there. He's still looking to be traded. But he's playing well enough so that you would keep him on the blocks and let him keep on churning. They need a left shot defenseman to go with McAvoy for sure.
Yeah.
And they need. I heard that they were tinkering with maybe doing something with Claude Giroux, which would be a great fit for them. But what do you have to give up to get a guy of that caliber? I mean, he's now getting long in the tooth, but he'd be a pretty good fit. But I'm not going to go out and spend all of my savings on something for a team that I think has played much better, but I don't really find them a threat to be a championship team. But, maybe Berge gives them a little boost and says, listen, this is my last go-around. Give me a chance here.
So you don't think they're a piece away, for instance, from being a legitimate contender? I
do not.
Okay. And with regard to DeBrusk, because we've been discussing it the last couple of days, I feel like he's probably not going to get over whatever was bothering him. Wiggy is probably right when he says that it was being called out publicly by the coach. Is that a guy that you want to deal now because it doesn't make any sense to think that things are going to get better for him? Or is he somebody that you think could come around and be happy here going forward?
It's hard to answer that question accurately, not knowing what exactly happened. I don't know if it was the coach thing. It sounds like that's the most logical answer to this riddle. But he's played as well as he's played since he's been a Bruin lately. I mean, really digging hard, looking to get at loose pucks, really in hard on the forecheck, being somewhat productive. But if he's determined to go, well, eventually you're going to have to make that decision. At this point, I'm not in any hurry to give him away. I'm certainly not going to get a bag of pucks for him. I mean, he's a valuable tool, and it looks like he keeps on flirting with being a top six forward. Is he that now? Well, he is for the moment. And so if you've got a top six forward, somebody else evaluates him in that situation, you get yourself a pretty good defenseman, I think. But I would not be in a hurry to give him away. There's still time, but by the end of the summer, for sure, if not by the trading deadline, you probably need to come to some resolution, because if he's unhappy and he's going to spread that unhappiness through the locker room, it's a problem.
Mike, I agree. I wouldn't be in a hurry to give him away either. But when his agent is out there saying, you know, the trade demand is still there, we're hoping to get it done before March 21st. If you're Cassidy, does he take that into account at all about how outspoken they've been about his want to get out of Boston?
No, first of all, agents suck. You know, they're really a pain in the ass. I mean, they're just like, just don't listen to agents and let them go away. I think you have to be tougher than that. Can't listen to the agent, let him chirp away, but you have to stay on top of the kid, make sure that DeBrusk is, you know, knows where he's at, that maybe you're trying to accommodate his trade wishes. It may not happen now. It may have to happen later. But again, I don't know what the source of his anxiety is, and if it's the coach, then it comes down to the coach or the player. You're probably going to, in this case, let the player go, not the coach. Are you
surprised by how mature he's been throughout this whole situation? Because I think media's now tried to ask the questions again, like, you've said you've wanted out for a bit. Where do you stand now? And he said he felt bad about doing that to his teammates. Are you surprised by the maturity there?
I really don't know him, but I think he should be proud of himself for taking that route. I mean, that's a very mature decision, and he's playing as hard as he's ever played, and I think he's made himself, you know, valuable to not only the Bruins but to other teams out there, and probably enhanced the ability of the Bruins to trade him. So I think it's worked out well for everybody, and you know, he's made the best of a bad situation.
Mike, I know agents suck when you're in front office, but when you're the player, they're super valuable. And I think this question.
I mean, if I remember correctly, Ken Laird almost came to fisticuffs with Mike Milbury's agent.
Yeah.
Is that why he's in Canada?
Yeah. I don't know about that, but you know, I don't think anybody could win that fight.
So Mike, my question is here, because I think you would understand better than anybody, because when I look at like the trade deadline, I think there's three elements to it, like three levels. There's the players, there's the coach, and then there's the front office, and all three of those elements are thought differently. Like, players, they look at it and go, are we good enough to win a championship? And if so, make a big move. Then there's the coach's thought process on whether or not a big piece is going to help them, or do they need to do that in this front office. Being in all three of those positions, how difficult is this time to be able to keep everybody on the same page, which is ultimately getting to a Stanley Cup, and not having guys, losing players in the locker room, where we see at times when coaches don't make moves, some guys think, well, they don't think we're good enough to get there.
Yeah, that's a good question. I really think that the players have positioned themselves to the point where it probably behooves Don Sweeney to maybe take a look at adding a piece or two, but not knowing if he, you know, everybody has their own evaluation of the Bruins. Mine is that they're a solid team, a good team, not a championship team, but the players have played as hard as they played all year in the last little while, and it leads up to the trading deadline, where if you could give them, you know, a little sugar, it might not be a bad idea, but I would not be in a hurry to make major moves. I mean, if you're trading for Claude Giroux and you're going to give up 2 first-round picks or whatever the hell it is that you're going to have to give up to him, I wouldn't do it. But if you can find some prospect and a pick that you can give away and give your team some believability and hope they can maybe pull an upset in the first round, I might be willing to do that.
You brought up Patrice Bergeron, and we talked with you about this a while ago, but it bears, I guess, guessing again. Do you guess that this is his last season?
I've said it before. I mean, I think for his own health and safety, I mean, given what I know, and I don't have his medical reports in front of me, but he's had a bunch of hits to the noggin. It's, of course, we said this about Brady. Maybe he should retire when he's 38 or 39 or 40, but now he keeps on going until he's 45. But I don't get the point here. I mean, at some point or another, you have to consider your future health, and I think it's the time for him to seriously consider it. Could he stick in another year or maybe two? Of course he could, but if I were his sucky agent, I'd advise him to probably hang it up.
Yeah.
Now, Mike,
and then so he could that could be the one thing that he does go to Don Sweeney, Cam Neely, and say, "This is it, my last year, the window closing here." And then theoretically they go, all right, well, let's go all in and see what we can get to make this a contender.
Yeah, I mean, he could do that, and I suggested that, but he doesn't seem to me the type that is going to be really forceful and vocal in that regard. But if he's made that determination, I mean, that's a plausible scenario for him. Yeah. And if that did happen, I would think that Don Sweeney would probably do whatever he could to make it work. On the other hand, you talk about the plateaus of player, coach, and manager. It's the manager ultimately, well, maybe the owner too, who has to determine where the team is at and what kind of price he wants to pay in order to try to make a longer run in the playoffs, and if it's really realistic. And in my thinking, there are at least 3 or 4 teams ahead of the Bruins at the top of the conference that they're going to have real trouble getting past.
Now, Mike, you said you wouldn't make a big move, but if you were in management, would you go to a guy like Patrice Bergeron and ask him what he wants to do so you can ultimately figure out what direction that you want to go in?
I think you can go with your gut and with somebody of the character of Bergeron, who's going to be, I think, honest with you. I mean, I think at this stage of his career, he should be involved a little bit, not totally, but a little bit in what's happening with the team. It makes sense. He's got a good feel of the locker room. He's got a good feel of how people are playing. But players also can be a little delusional when it comes to evaluating their own situation. They get excited about winning the Stanley Cup. They get excited about the way the team's played lately. Is it realistic to think that they're going to, once they get into and their schedule, by the way, which we haven't talked about, is brutal down the stretch. Are they really going to have a realistic chance at winning a championship? And that's where Don Sweeney has to be the guy that makes, with Cam Neely and maybe the owner, that makes the call on whether they make a big deal or not, regardless of what Bergeron thinks.
Which happens first? Bergeron plays his last game as a Bruin, or there's a Major League Baseball game played at Fenway Park?
Well, I don't care if they play another game at Fenway Park.
All right, Curtis, you have the last question for Mike Milbury.
I just was curious, Mike, your experience in 2004, 2005 when you were with the Islanders with the work stoppage. Any insight as to how these organizations are feeling, the stress level? Were you engaged in the talks regarding the salary cap implementation? What was your experience then?
Well, it's a really frustrating time. I mean, both sides dig in, start to feel that they have the answers to the questions, and you can really get a little jaded in your opinions, and it can get really personal. And that's where cooler heads have to prevail. Somewhere along the line, they have to have somebody that has a more rational approach, and bringing in different people to take a look at the situation makes some sense. And I mean, listen, when you get into those situations, it's the commissioner and the head of the union that have to be the guys that find a way to come to the promised land. And right now, it doesn't look like it's heading in that direction.
All right, Mike, always great to talk to you, and we'll talk to you again next week.
All right, have a good one.